The manhwa opens near the Gold Coast, Australia, with a scene of a man holding a severely injured woman in his arms. As she lies there, her condition appears critical. This person is a team leader who pleads with her to hold on just a little longer, assuring her that emergency services are on the way. However, the woman, aware of her dire situation, expresses a sense of hopelessness. In a poignant moment, she requests him to take her teleportation skill, a revelation that catches him off guard. Confused, he questions what she means by this, prompting her to divulge knowledge about his hidden abilities, indicating that she knows more about him than he expected. Despite his sadness, he tells her she doesn't need to continue speaking, sensing the impending tragedy. With urgency, she insists he accept her skill so he can live on, understanding that she has little time left. Tragically, she succumbs to her injuries and dies in his arms. After the tragic death of the woman, Seonwoo, the team leader, becomes visibly flustered. He grits his teeth, overwhelmed by the situation and the gravity of her last request. In a moment of despair and regret, he apologizes softly, feeling the weight of his inability to save her. As he speaks, a powerful aura begins to envelop him. It's a manifestation of his unique ability. As he absorbs the black aura that emanates from the deceased woman, he screams in agony, the process of taking in her power being both intense and painful. This black aura is a representation of her teleportation skill, and as it flows into him, he interprets her earlier statement as claiming she knows everything. In truth, he is a carnivorous ability user who can absorb the powers of other metahumans. She urges him to live on. After the transfer is complete, Seonwoo gently lays her body on the ground, a final act of respect for the woman who sacrificed so much for him. In this moment of quiet reflection, he recognizes the gravity of his new abilities and the burden he carries. With a heavy heart, he prepares to move on from the scene, determined to carry her memory with him. Seonwoo then activates the teleportation skill he just acquired from her, enveloped in a flash of energy as he disappears from the Gold Coast location. It's all started as a hole appeared in the sky. From the hole, many beasts that weren't from this world came pouring out. As a result, millions of people around the world either died or got injured, and those who remained were separated from their families or became refugees. Powerful countries tried to suppress the situation with their strong military powers, but against the power of the beasts, the humans were helpless. Humans were chased by beasts and had to avoid or hide from them. Famine and terror reigned everywhere. People sensed the end of the world. However, it has been 3 years since the cataclysm. That's when the metahumans appeared. They were able to kill the special monsters that even the powerful countries were unable to with their military forces, and the number of them gradually increased. That was the start of the humans' counterattack. The metahumans joined forces to create a safety zone. This safety zone was called a city. The people living in the city were able to enjoy affluent lives again, just like they had before the monsters appeared. But on the other hand, there were still non-safety zones called the wilderness. People in the wilderness were living with the violence of anarchy and continued to live with the fear of death. The world was separated into safety zones and non-safety zones. In the wilderness of Seoul, a group of metahumans was on a quest for something. The leader questions the guide about their progress and confirms the guide's claim of being a normal human before asking for his name. The guide introduced himself as Kim Seonwoo. Kim Seonwoo urged the group to look up, revealing that they had entered the territory of the brass spiders. The sight of dead bodies suspended in webs shocked the group. He explained that the 19th class brass spiders were relatively easy to hunt, outlining a strategy. First, they should sever all 8 legs, then decapitate the creature, and finally collect its body. Seonwoo advised starting with the front legs, as they were crucial for the spider's attacks. He warned them to be particularly cautious of the white spider webs that could shoot from the spider's mouth, noting that this fatal attack could instantly decapitate anyone caught off guard. The group leader acknowledged Kim Seonwoo's advice with a mix of frustration and respect, admitting that there was no point in trying to appear tough in front of metahumans. Seonwoo acknowledged the leader's previous achievement of defeating the 18th class bearded salamander and apologized for any perceived disrespect. Suddenly, a spider emerged and launched its web at the leader. Seonwoo quickly noticed the threat and shouted for the leader to move, but he didn't move at all. Seonwoo pushed him out of harm's way, also dodging the web himself. After the close call, Seonwoo admonished the leader for his inaction, urging him to take cover. Though visibly nervous upon seeing the massive spider, the leader regained his composure and commanded his group to get into position for the confrontation. While leader sweating and questioning if this was a 19th class, Kim Seonwoo noticed the spider preparing to strike again, while the rest of the group remained inactive. He shouted urgently for them to dodge, but as he did, the spider launched a web attack that instantly decapitated one of the metahumans. The gruesome sight of the severed head landing near him caused the leader to freeze in fear and collapse to the ground. Seonwoo, frustrated, yelled at the group to stop standing idly by. Internally, he reflected on the situation, realizing that the attack squad skill level was far below what he had been led to believe. He recalled his senior's assurances that they were a competent attack squad that had previously defeated an 18th class creature, and she claimed all he had to do was guide them to success for a good payout. Seonwoo felt betrayed, realizing that those claims were misleading. As the spider readied to attack once more, he quickly alerted the group, warning them that it was coming again. The leader quickly charged at the spider, blocking its attack with his sword, though he soon began to tremble from the sheer force behind the strike. In desperation, he unleashed his ability, generating an electric attack against the creature. Observing this, Kim Seonwoo realized that the leader had an electrical ability and noted that at least their status as metahumans was accurate. Stunned by the electric assault, the spider collapsed to the ground. Seizing the opportunity, the leader ordered his teammates to attack. They surrounded the spider and launched an assault from all sides, but Seonwoo was horrified to see them targeting the body instead of the legs. He shouted for them to cut off the spider's legs first, but his warnings went unheeded. Enraged, the spider retaliated, striking one of the metahumans and sending him crashing into a wall where a metal rod impaled him, killing him instantly. This horrific sight fueled the leader's anger, prompting him to charge at the spider once more. He swung his sword, but the spider easily blocked the attack with one of its front legs and used another to stab the leader, inflicting a serious injury. In pain, the leader dropped his sword and let out a loud scream. Just as the spider prepared to devour him, the leader gathered his resolve, tapping into his electric ability once again to strike at the spider in a desperate bid for survival. The spider, feeling the effects of the electric attack, violently threw the leader aside, sending him crashing to the ground a short distance away from Kim Seonwoo. Witnessing this, Seonwoo felt a surge of frustration and anger as he gritted his teeth in dismay. He mentally grappled with the situation, realizing that the attack squad was made up entirely of inexperienced members. With most of the team either dead or incapacitated, he found himself as the last one standing. Overwhelmed by the chaos, Seonwoo questioned how everything had spiraled out of control so quickly. He had only intended to serve as a guide, not to engage in a life-or-death battle. In Wilderness Area 17, a person informed Kim Bizik, the branch manager of Node Area 17, that Beatrice had taken down another target. Bizik acknowledged the report, saying he would send someone to handle the situation. Meanwhile, Jamie, the receptionist at the Node Area 17 exchange, was checking her skin while looking in the mirror. At that moment, Kim Bizik emerged from his office and called for Jamie. He instructed her to notify Chance's hunter team to come to the exchange center. When Jamie asked if it was regarding the frequent barrier repairs, Bizik confirmed her suspicion, expressing his confusion over what was happening. Jamie, sensing something was off, hesitated before addressing him as branch manager. Bizik clarified that he was merely thinking aloud and then inquired about Kim Seonwoo's status. Jamie informed him that Seonwoo was currently guiding the brass spider hunting team. Kim Bizik remarked that it was just a brass spider and expressed surprise that the team had not finished their task long ago. As he left, he reassured himself that Kim Seonwoo would be fine, instructing Jamie to inform Seonwoo to prepare for his return and to stop fixating on the mirror. Jamie confirmed his instructions, but noted that the hunters Seonwoo was guiding were all inexperienced. Bizik then asked what rank they had submitted for. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to the brass spider's lair, where Seonwoo stood before the creature, reflecting on the dire situation. As the spider prepared to launch another web attack, Seonwoo reached into his pocket and pulled out a gun, reminding himself that he was just supposed to be a guide for the team. The spider then unleashed its web, but Seonwoo skillfully dodged it by flipping through the air. Upon landing, he immediately aimed his gun at the spider and fired, prompting the group leader to smile mockingly and claim that the bullets would be ineffective. Seonwoo retorted to the leader, telling him to shut up and watch. And upon impact, the bullet struck the spider's body, resulting in a massive explosion that severely injured the creature. The leader, surprised, exclaimed that Seonwoo was using core bullets and questioned why he hadn't employed such powerful ammunition earlier, before the team had suffered casualties. Seonwoo, visibly frustrated, chastised the leader for his lack of self-awareness, stating that if the team had possessed the skills they claimed in their submitted ranks, none of this would have happened. He expressed his disdain for having to waste a valuable core bullet on a situation created by incompetent teammates, asserting that even a non-metahuman could take down a rank 19 creature with the right equipment and experience. He then brandished his dagger and charged at the spider, emphasizing his extensive experience as a guide on numerous hunts. As he approached, Seonwoo plunged his dagger into the spider's leg, causing it to scream in agony. Seizing the moment, he swiftly severed the spider's leg, then quickly shifted his focus to the other legs, cutting them as well until the spider crashed to the ground. Turning to the leader, he reiterated his earlier instructions, to attack the legs first and then the head. With that, he raised his dagger and launched an attack on the spider's head, declaring, "Like this." Seeing Seonwoo effortlessly hunt down the brass spider, the leader became flustered that a mere human could achieve such a feat while his team had failed. After delivering repeated strikes to the spider's head, Seonwoo finally killed the creature. He then confronted the leader, expressing his disdain for the way they had trembled in fear before a creature that was barely considered large. Seonwoo accused him of submitting fake rank papers to the exchange center, pointing out that the rank 18 bearded salamander only shed its skin once a year, implying that the leader was merely pretending to have hunted it using a skin he had scavenged. Seonwoo commended the leader's audacity, noting that despite the dire circumstances, no one had run away while the team was dying, and he was impressed by the leader's resolve to hold the spider's front leg and strike back even after being severely injured. He suggested that instead of forging rank papers, the leader should have focused on honing his skills. Although Seonwoo acknowledged that the leader likely had his reasons for resorting to deception, he warned him about the consequences of tricking Node. The group leader laughed off the warning, admitting that he was aware it was a felony. Seonwoo expressed his frustration, stating that he wished he had the authority to execute him right then and there. Just then, Seonwoo heard a voice in his head urging him to kill the leader. The leader, realizing his precarious state, noted that waiting for Node to dispose of him would be difficult, and he ultimately succumbed to death. As the leader died, Seonwoo was left bewildered by the voice he had heard, pondering whether he had misheard it. He let out a sigh of relief, trying to shake off the unsettling experience. Then Seonwoo reflected on his earlier conversation with Jamie. He recalled her claiming that the attack team had successfully taken down a rank 18 creature. He felt a surge of anger at the realization that he had been misled into believing he could easily earn money by guiding them. Frustrated, he cursed Jamie for her deception. Later, upon returning to the exchange center, he shouted Jamie's name, confronting her with indignation for placing him in a situation with such incompetent teammates. Jamie attempted to calm him down, noting that it wasn't like him to be so agitated. Seonwoo acknowledged that she was right, but insisted on the seriousness of the situation, prompting a nervous laugh from her. He pressed on, questioning how the branch manager could fail to distinguish between a freshly shed skin and one that had actually been hunted. Jamie defended herself, stating that they had all been deceived by the attack team's plans to trick them. Seonwoo informed her that there would be no fee for her in the commission this time, and demanded that she provide him with all pertinent information about his clients moving forward. Jamie hesitated, reminding him that breaking Node's rules regarding client confidentiality could lead to serious repercussions. Seonwoo countered that if they couldn't provide that information, she needed to find a way to make it happen. Jamie pleaded with him to let it go this one time, promising to be more cautious in the future. Just then, two people approached them, and Seonwoo expressed his exhaustion, lamenting that if it weren't for the branch manager, he would have already severed ties with Area 17. Jamie reminded Seonwoo that even if he didn't mean it, the metahumans were particularly sensitive due to the guides frequently moving through the areas. Flustered, Seonwoo snapped back, expressing his frustration with the constant emphasis on metahumans and their issues. He questioned the point of worrying about how one might die if it was going to happen regardless, whether at the hands of a beast or a hunter. As he recalled the leader's ability, Seonwoo felt a wave of bitterness, lamenting that if he had even a mediocre power like that scammer hunter, he could have used it far more effectively. His thoughts were abruptly interrupted when someone punched him, sending him crashing to the ground. Before he could regain his footing, the assailant seized him by the neck and lifted him off the ground. The metahuman, Kim Seonwoo, confronted Seonwoo with a taunt, expressing excitement at finally meeting the renowned guide and suggesting he could do Seonwoo a favor by killing him. Seonwoo glared back angrily, not backing down from the provocation. Seonwoo remarked on the audacity reflected in Seonwoo's eyes, but their exchange was interrupted by a girl who stepped in. The girl, Park Eun-jong, asserted that anyone associated with Node could act as a representative of the guild and utilize Node's name when necessary. She reminded Seonwoo that any actions intended to harm Node members would be considered an attack on Node itself. As a 17th class hunter with the ability of vision reinforcement, Eunjong was keenly aware of the rules governing their guild. After the destruction, Node was the only guild that worked to maintain peace within the lands called the Wilderness. They worked to create a safe place for humanity to survive and received requests such as demonic beast hunting. Eunjong pointed out that for a metahuman Node member to attack a non-metahuman Node member could lead to serious consequences, questioning Seonwoo's willingness to face punishment for such actions. Hearing this, as a 17th class hunter with the ability of physical reinforcement, Seonwoo became visibly flustered, realizing the implications of his behavior. Kim Seonwoo was released by Kim Seonwoo, causing him to collapse onto the ground, drenched in sweat and gasping for breath. Concerned, Eunjong approached and asked if he was okay. Seonwoo reassured her, saying he is fine, Hunter Eunjong. Eunjong then turned to Seonwoo, questioning the need for him to act so mighty and create a scene. Just then, another individual arrived, introducing himself as Jong Chansu, the leader of Team Marlin Hunter in Area 17. He addressed both Seonwoo and Eunjong, stating that the branch manager was waiting for them, and included Seonwoo in the invitation. Seonwoo was surprised to be summoned by the team leader, thinking to himself that everyone from Team Marlin must have been gathered for an important reason. A short while later, they convened in the branch manager's office, where Jong Chansu informed Seonwoo that they had received a request from Gwangmyeong to help protect the barriers. Seonwoo immediately deduced that she must have passed out again. Chansu confirmed his suspicion, explaining that until she was able to heal, they had been asked to act as bait to draw attention away from the barriers. Kim Seonwoo expressed disbelief at the recurring nature of the requests, mentioning that while he hadn't personally dealt with it, he had heard more stories about such missions lately. Jong Chansu explained that the situation seemed dire, noting that she had been overexerting herself and had been unable to sleep recently. Seonwoo reacted cynically, suggesting that the people should protect their own land instead of relying on them, implying that they were not their slaves. Branch manager Bizik intervened, acknowledging the desperation of the situation and highlighting the unusual conditions tied to the request. When Seonwoo inquired about these conditions, Bizik revealed that the requesters were offering citizenship as a reward for their assistance. This news left Seonwoo momentarily speechless. Jong Chansu noted the gravity of the situation, remarking on the significance of offering their strict citizenship as a reward, indicating how desperate the requesters must be. Seonwoo then raised his hand, volunteering to participate in the mission. Jong Chansu agreed, encouraging him to do his best once again. Eunjong also expressed her desire to join, excited at the prospect of visiting the famed city she had heard about in stories. When Kim Seonwoo questioned her motivations, she told him to shut up. In a surprising turn, Seonwoo then raised his hand as well, stating that if citizenship was at stake, he would also join to assist them. Jong Chansu concluded the meeting by instructing all members of Team Marlin to prepare for their mission and to gather at the southwest exit gate the next day at 6 o'clock. The team members agreed to the plan. That night, Seonwoo sat down to write in his diary, reflecting on Gwangmyeong, one of the largest cities rebuilt after the world's destruction. He noted the presence of a core energy field at the city's edge, which served to keep demonic beasts at bay. This barrier, maintained by a high-class metahuman named Beatrice for decades, had become unstable due to her declining health. Seonwoo understood the urgency of their mission. They needed to ensure the barrier remained intact until Beatrice could recover. He considered the potential disaster that could unfold if an S-class demonic beast attacked during her healing process, acknowledging that even the city's majority metahuman population would be overwhelmed. Seonwoo criticized the city for its hypocrisy. After previously disregarding the wilderness dwellers, they were now desperately seeking their help to protect their citizens from danger. The next morning at 6 o'clock, the team gathered to prepare for their mission. Jong Chansu asked Seonwoo if they would be taking the same route as their previous journey. Seonwoo explained that the environment had changed significantly since then and mentioned rumors of a 5th-class demonic beast, the bearded gargoyle, being sighted in the area. Chansu expressed concern, acknowledging that even he would find a 5th-class beast challenging to handle. Seonwoo assured him that as a 10th-class physical reinforcement metahuman, Chansu would be capable of dealing with threats, so he planned a route that would avoid demonic beasts above the 11th class. He indicated they would need to take a detour through an area known for 15th class demonic stag beetles, but Chansu remained confident in his ability to manage them. With the route discussed and agreed upon, Seonwoo led the team as they set off toward Gwangmyeong City. As they traveled, he suddenly noticed something suspicious in their surroundings and signaled for his teammates to hold still. Kim Seong-un noticed Seonwoo's sudden seriousness and asked what was wrong. Seonwoo requested quiet as he crouched down to examine a fresh footprint on the ground. Eun-jong, curious, inquired if it was a print from a demonic beast. Seonwoo clarified that he needed to investigate further and asked Eun-jong to use her vision reinforcement ability to scan the area. Eun-jong promptly activated her ability and asked which direction to focus on. Seonwoo directed her toward an area where the sand clouds were turbulent. After using her ability, Eun-jong reported that she couldn't see anything noteworthy beyond the clouds. Kim Seong-hoo approached, urging Seonwoo to reveal what was causing the tension. Seonwoo revealed that they were dealing with a hobgoblin horde, which shocked the group. He explained that the horde had passed through the area within the last 15 minutes, and, due to their keen sense of smell, they had likely detected the team and changed direction to pursue them. Eun-jong confirmed this, using her ability again and asserting that the hobgoblins were indeed coming for them. Seong-hoo acknowledged the threat, while Jong Chon-soo expressed his confidence in Seonwoo's guidance. Seonwoo emphasized the need to limit the hobgoblins' path, pointing out that 2 out of the 4 team members were not combat-ready. Jong Chon-soo asked if there was anything nearby they could utilize, to which Seonwoo mentioned a bridge to the north. Turning to Seong-hoo, Seonwoo requested that he carry Eun-jong, and the group began to run toward the bridge. Seong-hoo was surprised by Seonwoo's commanding tone, but noticed Eun-jong found it impressive. She encouraged Seong-hoo to run faster, prompting him to pick up speed while he, in response, jokingly acknowledging her. As they ran, a horde of hobgoblins pursued them, adding urgency to their escape. As they ran toward the bridge, Seonwoo continuously glanced back to gauge the distance between their group and the pursuing horde of hobgoblins. He contemplated the nature of the threat. The hobgoblins were classified as an 18th class beast, weaker individually than a 19th class brass spider, but dangerous in numbers due to their strong teamwork. This group mentality made them formidable, particularly in open areas where engaging them could overwhelm even skilled metahumans. Seonwoo analyzed the team's composition: 2 17th class metahumans, but only one was combat skilled, while the other had 10th class combat abilities. He concluded that while the situation was risky, it wasn't hopeless. The bridge they were approaching was approximately 4 meters wide and 6 to 7 meters high. If Jong Chon-soo and Kim Seong-hoo could effectively defend the center of the bridge, they had a good chance of fending off the hobgoblins. Upon reaching the bridge, the team continued running until they reached its center, where Seonwoo called for a halt. He instructed Jong Chon-soo and Kim Seong-hoo to take their positions in the middle of the bridge to face the incoming horde, to which Jong Chon-soo agreed. Seonwoo then declared that he would handle the rear flank. Eun-jong, uncertain about her role, asked what she should do. Seonwoo's internal thoughts revealed his concern about her being a potential liability. Given her status as a non-combat metahuman, he recognized that protecting her during the battle would distract the 2 combatants, potentially compromising their focus and effectiveness against the hobgoblins. To mitigate this risk, he decided that it would be best for Eun-jong to avoid engaging in the fight altogether. Seonwoo instructed Eun-jong to get behind him for protection, solidifying his role as her defender, while Jong Chon-soo and Kim Seong-hoo took their positions to confront the horde of hobgoblins. As the 2 skilled metahumans prepared for battle, Seonwoo reflected on his concerns regarding their capabilities. He considered Jong Shan-soo's reputation as a prominent figure in the 17th district, yet he had never witnessed the team leader's skills in action firsthand. Additionally, he noted that both Kim Seong-hoo and Eun-jong were recent additions to Team Marlin, which left uncertainties about their abilities and support skills. Until they overcame these variables, Seonwoo felt he couldn't let his guard down. When the hobgoblin horde charged toward them, Jong Chon-soo unleashed his power, executing a powerful slash that instantly eliminated several hobgoblins. His agility and ferocity allowed him to leap forward, effectively dispatching more of the advancing enemies. Similarly, Kim Seong-hoo activated his ability to engage the hobgoblins approaching his side of the bridge, showcasing his combat prowess. Watching both combatants decimate the horde, Seonwoo momentarily reconsidered his earlier worries, thinking to himself that perhaps he had overestimated the threat. Their display of skill was impressive, as they were effectively thinning out the numbers of the attackers. However, amidst the chaos, a hobgoblin managed to sneak behind Seonwoo and Eun-jong. It yanked Eun-jong's hair, causing her to crash to the ground and cry out for help. Hearing her distress, Seonwoo immediately turned around to assess the situation, while Kim Seonwoo, alerted by the commotion, also glanced back to ask what had happened. Seonwoo, realizing the imminent danger, urgently commanded Kim Seonwoo to focus on the front instead of reacting to Yeonjong's plight. Flustered, Kim Seonwoo retorted, expressing frustration at being ordered around. At that moment, the hobgoblin that had sneaked up on them was poised to strike Eunjong with its axe. Seonwoo reacted swiftly, grabbing Eunjong and pulling her toward him, narrowly saving her from the axe's blade, which only managed to clip her hair. Both Seonwoo and Eunjong rolled away from the hobgoblin, creating some distance. They quickly regained their footing, with Seonwoo adopting a fighting stance and drawing his dagger. He mentally resolved that he could not rely on his teammates for support in this situation and needed to handle the threat himself. As the hobgoblin charged at him, Seonwoo swung his dagger, but the creature dodged. However, he managed to follow up with another strike that connected, knocking the hobgoblin back slightly and causing its helmet to fall off. The strike stunned the hobgoblin momentarily, but it quickly retaliated, raising its axe for a counterattack. Seonwoo narrowly evaded the strike by rolling backward. Before he could fully recover, the hobgoblin advanced, raising its axe once more. In a surprising turn, Eunjong stabbed the hobgoblin with her own dagger, causing it to recoil in pain. Taking advantage of the hobgoblin's disorientation and the chaos of battle, Seonwoo tripped the creature as it attempted to flee. He then swiftly cut off the hobgoblin's head as it fell, ensuring that the threat was neutralized. Just as Seonwoo dispatched the hobgoblin, Kim Seonwoo and Jong Chansu finished off the remaining members of the horde and rushed to the rear to regroup. Breathing heavily and trembling, Seonwoo glanced at his hands, still shaking from the adrenaline of the fight. Kim Seonwoo approached him, critiquing Seonwoo's decision to focus on the hobgoblin instead of guarding Eunjong. In response, Eunjong vehemently defended Seonwoo, countering that it was Kim Seonwoo's failure to eliminate the hobgoblin that had put them in danger. Kim Seonwoo expressed frustration about hobgoblin re-emerging during the fight, stating that he was trying to assist but had been told by Seonwoo to focus on the front. Jong Chansu praised Seonwoo's decision, recognizing the importance of not dividing their attention during the battle. He then checked on Seonwoo, asking if he was okay. Although Seonwoo assured them he was fine, he internally wrestled with feelings of failure for not adequately protecting Hunter Eunjong, realizing he needed help during the fight. Jong Chansu suggested they should hurry, fearing that more demonic beasts might appear. However, Seonwoo reassured the group, explaining that the presence of numerous low-class beasts meant that stronger ones were likely not nearby, allowing them to proceed without immediate concern. As they continued their journey, Seonwoo suddenly stopped, prompting Kim Seonwoo to impatiently inquire if they had arrived at their destination. Ignoring the question, Seonwoo hurried ahead, which frustrated Kim Seonwoo even more. Seonwoo climbed onto a ruined building and commanded the others to follow him up, but Kim Seonwoo noted that Seonwoo was being unresponsive. Once they all reached the top, Seonwoo turned to them and revealed the breathtaking sight of the Gwangmyeong Dome, a big city they had never encountered before, leaving both Eunjong and Kim Seonwoo in awe of its grandeur. As the group arrived at the barrier encircling the city, Eunjong was captivated by the sight and hesitated, contemplating whether to touch it. Just as she gathered the courage to reach out, Kim Seonwoo unexpectedly grabbed her hand and pulled it through the barrier without any resistance. Eunjong was shocked by the sensation, her eyes wide in disbelief. Kim Seonwoo chuckled, teasing her reaction. This only fueled Yeonjong's frustration as she retorted angrily, "Seriously, what would you do if she had a heart attack?" Jong Chansu interjected, reminding her that she hadn't actually felt anything harmful, prompting Eunjong to respond, "Yes, to the point it felt strange." Curious, Kim Seonwoo decided to test the barrier himself and found his hand pass through just as easily. He questioned its effectiveness, asking, "Does this really block the demonic beasts?" Jong Chansu reassured him, explaining that the barrier had successfully protected the city for over 10 years, so they could trust its power. With that, the group prepared to enter the barrier. Upon reaching the city gate, they were met by guards who instructed them to stop and present identification. Jong Chansu stepped forward, providing his identity card. He introduced himself as the leader of Node 17's Team Marlin and handed over his card for scanning. After the guard verified the information, he handed them bracelets, instructing each member to take one and wear it. After donning these bracelets, Eunjong remarked on its aesthetic appeal, comparing it to a core bracelet. The guard informed them that the barrier defense operation was set to begin at 7 a.m. the next day and that temporary accommodations would be provided at the public exercise facility. He cautioned them that after sunset, they were not permitted to leave their accommodations, as citizens tended to get anxious when wilderness people roamed the streets at night. Kim Seonwoo broke the silence by questioning the consequences of disobeying this rule. The guard ominously replied that those who roamed would lose a hand, and warned that attempting to forcibly remove the bracelet would result in an explosion, prompting both Kim Seonwoo and Eun-jong to react in shock. Kim Seonwoo expressed his discomfort, stating he didn't like the idea of a wrist bomb. The guard then instructed them to enter the city. As they proceeded, Seonwoo contemplated the purpose of the barrier, reflecting that a thin, energy barrier should suffice for keeping demonic beasts at bay. However, the thick barrier symbolized their exclusionary stance toward wilderness people. Inside the city, both Kim Seonwoo and Eun-jong were visibly amazed by the vibrant scene. Jong Chon-soo pointed out that it was Eun-jong and Kim Seonwoo's first visit to such a place, welcoming them to the city. They observed people leisurely sitting, some enjoying drinks while others engaged in reading newspapers, creating a stark contrast to the wilderness they were accustomed to. Eun-jong voiced her astonishment at how different the atmosphere felt even after just a few meters of walking, prompting Jong Chon-soo to share his own initial impressions upon arriving in a city. He then turned to Seonwoo, asking if he intended to head straight to the exercise facility. Seonwoo informed Jong Chon-soo and Kim Seonwoo of his intention to explore the city for useful items. Jong Chon-soo agreed to meet him later at the accommodations, while Kim Seonwoo jokingly warned him not to return without a hand. As Seonwoo ventured deeper into the city, he noted its tranquility, which felt almost surreal to him. He stumbled upon an antique shop and pulled the door open. Just as he was about to enter, a girl carrying a stack of boxes rushed out, accidentally dropping her identification card. Seonwoo quickly picked it up, intending to return it, but the girl was already gone before he could call out to her. After collecting various items he deemed necessary, Seonwoo approached the counter where an old man was stationed. Noticing the goggles among his purchases, the shopkeeper inquired about Seonwoo's intentions for them. Seonwoo asked for the total price, and the shopkeeper confirmed he would only accept core currency, stating he doesn't accept scrap metal. Seonwoo agreed, and then noticed a stun grenade displayed in the shop. Curious, he asked the shopkeeper about it. The shopkeeper explained that it was a magic bomb akin to a flashbang. When the pin was removed, it would explode upon being thrown, creating a blinding flash. Seonwoo was surprised by this information and questioned the legality of selling such devices to civilians. The shopkeeper reassured him that it was not classified as a weapon because it wasn't lethal, although he warned that if it detonated too close, it would leave the person unable to see for a brief period. Intrigued, Seonwoo then asked where can he use it? The shopkeeper responded to Seonwoo's inquiry about the stun grenade, explaining that the demand for such items varied based on the user's intent. He mentioned that the grenade was manufactured specifically because there were people interested in buying it. Just then, the girl who had hurried out of the shop earlier reappeared, calling out for her entrance card. The shopkeeper claimed he hadn't seen it, but Seonwoo pulled out card he had previously picked up and asked, "Is this yours?" The girl immediately expressed her gratitude as Seonwoo returned her card, though she seemed a bit nervous in her response. After regaining her composure, she noticed Seonwoo's attire and asked if he was from the wilderness. She then offered tailored assistance, assuming he was a metahuman. Seonwoo clarified to her that he was not a metahuman, which surprised her. Intrigued, she examined him closely and took his hand to assess his abilities, asking whether he had heightened vision or hearing, since he didn't seem to possess super strength. Seonwoo, feeling uncomfortable with her probing, interrupted her and gently pulled his hand away, asking her to wait. Realizing her assertiveness, she apologized, admitting she had become too focused on her assessment. Despite her apology, she expressed her confusion, insisting that she sensed a signal indicating he might actually be a metahuman. Seonwoo was left perplexed by the girl's comments about sensing a signal indicating he might be a metahuman. Before he could respond, her phone rang, prompting her to excuse herself from the conversation and answer the call, saying yes, team leader, as she moved away. Seonwoo felt confused by the exchange, particularly her mention of him, a metahuman. After completing his purchases, including the stun grenade, Seonwoo returned to the accommodation, still pondering the girl's words. He thought back to his desire to become a metahuman, something he had longed for deeply. In the past, he had researched signs of awakening and methods to attain metahuman abilities, but he ultimately realized he did not possess them. He had come to terms with this reality and had committed himself to his role as a guide. However, the girl's assertion that he might be a metahuman unsettled him. He reflected on how he had given up hope, only for someone to suggest otherwise. Seonwoo tried to push the thoughts aside, realizing that letting them distract him could interfere with his work the following day. The next morning, he found himself at the city gate, where a significant number of metahumans had gathered from various regions of the wilderness. As the countdown to deactivate the barrier reached its final moments, Seonwoo declared, "Then he will make survival the ultimate goal like last time." Jang Chansu responded with agreement, saying, "All right, they will trust and follow him." An announcement was made, 8 seconds until the barrier is deactivated. The countdown progressed, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and with the announcement, "Barrier Defense Plan, activate," the barrier vanished, and the hunters surged out of the city. Almost immediately, they were met with chaos as a horde of giant bee monsters descended upon them, attacking relentlessly. The air filled with screams of horror as some hunters fell victim to the swarm. Seonwoo, Kim Seong-hoo, and Eun Jong exchanged worried glances, instinctively looking back to assess the situation. Jang Chansu urged them to look forward and run, emphasizing the need to stay focused and escape. Seonwoo quickly assessed their route and said they will go this way, signaling a direction to avoid the chaos. While some hunters engaged the giant bees, attempting to fend them off, Jang Chansu's team focused on escaping the mayhem. Amidst the turmoil, one desperate hunter sprinted towards the city gate, pleading, "Residents or whatever, he will give it up. Let him back in." But the guards stood firm, weapons drawn, blocking his path. The hunter commanded the guards to move aside, asking what they were doing. In a swift and brutal response, the guards executed him and another hunter behind him who had also been trying to reach the safety of the gates, illustrating the harsh reality of their situation. As she witnessed the chaos unfold, Eun-jong turned to Jang Chansu in shock, asking if he had seen what happened. He urged her not to look back and to focus on their escape. Meanwhile, Seonwoo's mind raced as he realized the grim truth of their situation. The city had deliberately sent them out as bait to draw the demonic beast's attention while the barrier was down, not because the hunters within were weak, but as a strategic maneuver. Eun-jong sensed danger and alerted the group about a herd of beasts approaching from the northwest. Seonwoo quickly ordered them to stop and hold their position. Kim Seong-hoo asked for clarification, and Seonwoo explained that a rank 9 raptor pack was expected to be approaching them based on predictions. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Kim Seong-hoo asked Jang Chansu how they would fight. Seonwoo pointed out that a single rank 9 raptor could easily defeat a pack of goblins, emphasizing that fighting would be pointless. Frightened, Eun-jong then asked what they should do. Without hesitation, Seonwoo distributed the swimming goggles and pipes he had purchased the previous day, urging them to take one. He donned a pair himself and demonstrated their next move by entering a nearby pond. "We hide our bodies like this," he instructed, submerging himself in the water, leaving only the pipe visible above the surface. Eun-jong expressed her discomfort, but recognizing there was no alternative, the group followed Seonwoo's lead. One by one, they entered the pond, donning their goggles and pipes, submerging themselves completely while only their breathing apparatuses remained visible above the water. As Seonwoo remained submerged in the pond, he reflected on the harsh reality. The skilled fighters in the cities were more than capable of dealing with the raptors, but for the mercenaries like them, survival was the only priority. Not long after, the menacing raptors appeared, launching a brutal attack on the mercenary hunters in the area, leaving chaos in their wake while all of them remained safely underwater. After a tense period of waiting, Seonwoo finally surfaced to check their surroundings. Relieved to see that the raptors had not noticed them, he let out a sigh as he took in the grim sight of the dead bodies of other hunters scattered around. He called out to his teammates, urging them to exit the water. Kim Seong-hoo emerged, asking did they all pass. Seonwoo confirmed, yes, the hunters who encountered the raptor pack probably all died to it. They need to follow their tracks. They're very aggressive, so there likely won't be any other beasts. Let's find a good hiding spot. With that, they set off to track the raptor horde. As night descended, the group found refuge in the remains of a destroyed building. Kim Seong-hoo voiced his impatience, inquired when will this end. Jang Chansu replied no clue. It took hours last time, so it might be the same this time. They can't do anything but wait for the signal. Suddenly, Seonwoo's instincts kicked in, and he shot up from his seat, sensing something was off. Kim Seong-hoo asked what's wrong. Just then, Eun-jong swiftly turned off their light, casting them into darkness. Both Kim Seong-hoo and Jang Chansu instinctively unsheathed their weapons, preparing for whatever threat might be lurking nearby. Jang Chansu questioned Seonwoo. Do he see something? Seonwoo indicated that he didn't see anything but felt that something was off, as all eyes turned toward a gate at the far end of the room, heightened tension filling the air as they braced for potential danger. As they remained on high alert, Jang Chansu noted the eerie calmness around them, asking why it felt so quiet. Seonwoo urged him to be cautious and told him to wait. Their focus was fixed on the gate when Seonwoo finally caught sight of the monster approaching. Jong Chon-soo, initially unaware, began to feel a growing sense of unease as he noted the shift in atmosphere. Then, as the creature drew nearer, the glowing eyes of the monster pierced through the darkness, prompting Jong Chon-soo to react swiftly. He commanded Seonwoo and Eun-jong, "Get in the back," prioritizing their safety. As the monster emerged into the dim light, Seonwoo's shock was palpable. "It's a black mantis," he exclaimed, a cold sweat breaking out across his face. The sight of the massive creature, with its menacing form and razor-sharp appendages, struck fear into their hearts. Jong Chon-soo questioned Seonwoo's alarm at the sight of the black mantis, asking why he was so shocked. Seonwoo explained that it was a large flying, demonic beast resembling a praying mantis, measuring about 2 meters high and 4 meters long. He cautioned that there were no records of its weaknesses or how to subdue it, indicating the need for a retreat. Jong Chon-soo suggested they could learn its capabilities by fighting it, but Seonwoo warned that being classified as unknown didn't mean it was weak. Instead, it could be stronger than the raptors in the area, likely at least 9th class. As the black mantis leaped and took flight, disappearing into the darkness, Jong Chon-soo ordered everyone to remain vigilant and adopt a combat formation. Kim Seong-hoo expressed uncertainty about where the creature might strike from, but Jong Chon-soo urged calmness to avoid panic. In the midst of the tension, Seonwoo called for Hunter Eun-jong to use her ability. She activated her reinforced vision, scanning the area for the mantis, but reported that she couldn't see it anywhere. Eun-jong felt anxious as she searched, hoping the beast would reveal itself. The sound of increasing wing beats filled the air, signaling the black mantis's approach. Seonwoo recognized it as a sign that the creature was getting closer and thought that by tracking the noise, they might locate it. He hoped that if everyone stayed calm, they could effectively respond when the mantis became visible. However, the black mantis suddenly appeared behind him without him realizing it. Startled, Seonwoo realized that something had sneaked up behind him. He instinctively swung his dagger at the mantis, but instead of injuring the creature, he was thrown backward, landing some distance away. Eun-jong, who was still using her ability to search for the mantis, noticed it hovering just above Seonwoo and quickly shouted a warning. Seonwoo looked up, but it was too late. The mantis launched an attack. In a split second, Jong Chon-soo rushed in to intercept the attack, telling Seonwoo to leave it to him and escape. Seonwoo acknowledged the order and retreated, while Jong Chon-soo swung his axe at the mantis, exclaiming, "Eat this!" Meanwhile, Seonwoo dashed back to his team members. Eun-jong asked him how the situation was, and he replied that they were at a disadvantage due to the darkness. Kim Seong-hoo expressed frustration, wishing for a light source to illuminate their surroundings. Seonwoo is in a tense situation, nervously reaching into his pocket to retrieve a glowing sphere. He throws it toward Jong Chon-soo, illuminating the area and revealing the threat of a menacing mantis hovering above. Jong Chon-soo, unfazed, taunts the creature, expressing his readiness to engage in combat. As Kim Seong-hoo rushes forward to assist, Jong Chon-soo commands him to stop, warning against reckless action. He explains that the mantis is his target. Seonwoo internally acknowledges the logic behind this. In a confined space, swinging weapons could lead to accidental harm among allies. However, Seonwoo is acutely aware of the mantis's superiority over the raptor, noting its enhanced strength and cunning intelligence. The mantis is capable of deceiving its prey by manipulating sound to obscure its true location, raising doubts about Jong Chon-soo's ability to confront such a formidable opponent alone. Undeterred, Jong Chon-soo readies himself for battle, enveloping himself in a bluish aura that signifies a boost in his combat abilities. Seonwoo realizes that Jong Chon-soo has maximized his stats in preparation for the confrontation. As the battle intensifies, the mantis prepares to strike, signaling an imminent clash. Both the mantis and Jong Chon-soo launch themselves toward each other, each eager to land a decisive blow. When their attacks collide, Jong Chon-soo's axe meeting the mantis's powerful leg. The impact sends the mantis stumbling backwards slightly, showcasing the strength of Jong Chon-soo's initial strike. The mantis quickly regains its composure and retaliates, aiming a swift attack at Jong Chon-soo. Demonstrating agility and reflexes, Jong Chon-soo bends low to dodge the mantis's assault, which instead strikes the nearby wall with a resounding crash. Seizing the moment created by the mantis's missed attack, Jong Chon-soo charges forward with determination. In a dramatic maneuver, he leaps high into the air, raising his axe for a full-powered swing aimed directly at the mantis. However, The mantis anticipates this move and successfully blocks the incoming attack, much to Zhang Shansu's surprise and frustration. This unexpected defense catches him off guard, as he had intended this to be his most powerful strike, leaving him momentarily flustered in the heat of battle. The battle between Zhang Shansu and the mantis rages on, with Zhang Shansu feeling the pressure mount. He realizes that if he is pushed any further, defeat is inevitable. Just as he is strategizing, the mantis takes advantage of his moment of hesitation, attacking his feet and inflicting a painful injury. Kim Seonwoo, witnessing Zhang Shansu's predicament, rushes in to help, swinging his sword at the mantis in a desperate attempt to intervene. However, the mantis deftly counters his attack, striking Kim Seonwoo instead and sending him crashing into a wall with tremendous force, rendering him unable to fight. This sudden turn of events causes alarm among Zhang Shansu's teammates, who shift their focus toward Kim Seonwoo in concern. Capitalizing on the distraction, the mantis retracts the leg that injured Zhang Shansu's foot and launches another brutal attack. This time, its leg pierces through Zhang Shansu's chest, causing him to scream in agony as he drops his axe. Overwhelmed by pain and despair, he trembles and reflects, this is one-sided. To be beaten like this. In a final display of power, the mantis throws him against the wall, leaving him unconscious on the ground. Now, with Zhang Shansu incapacitated, the mantis turns its attention to the remaining party members, Seonwoo and Eunjong. Seonwoo's heart races as he realizes they are next. Observing the mantis's strength and class, he deduces that it must be at least an 8th class creature, possibly even above 5th class, rendering their chances of victory bleak. He notes that the mantis's primary weapons, its formidable front legs, are stronger than Damascus steel, and a direct confrontation would be suicidal. Desperately, Seonwoo scans for a weak spot on the mantis, contemplating whether to target its head, neck, or chest. As the mantis approaches him, its imposing presence fills him with dread, and the mantis's overwhelming power intensifies the tension as he prepares to confront the beast. As Seonwoo continues to assess the situation, he notices a vulnerable connection between the mantis's legs and its torso while it stands upright. Seizing the opportunity, he charges forward, convinced that this is the mantis's weak spot. With all his strength, he strikes that point, but to his shock, nothing happens. Doubt creeps in as he realizes he must have hit it correctly, yet the mantis remains unfazed. In retaliation, the mantis swiftly strikes Seonwoo with one of its powerful front legs, sending him flying across the ground, where he crashes and coughs up blood. Before he can regain his composure, the mantis looms over him, positioning its front legs beside his head. It begins to produce strange noises from its mouth, leaving Seonwoo bewildered. In that moment of vulnerability, he ponders whether the mantis is crying or laughing at his misfortune. The realization hits him. If even Zhang Shansu, their experienced leader, couldn't defeat this creature, what hope did he have? A wave of despair washes over him as he confronts the stark reality that he may not survive this encounter. Suddenly, a strange noise echoes in the distance, capturing the mantis's attention. To Seonwoo's surprise, he sees the mantis begin to tremble. He wonders if the mantis is reacting to the sound, and in an unexpected turn of events, the mantis bolts away at full speed, leaving Seonwoo confused yet relieved to be alive. Eunjong approaches him with concern, asking if he is okay. Seonwoo's thoughts are consumed with questions about why the mantis fled, wondering if it was because he was too weak. He recalls the odd beeping noise and wonders if it was a signaling call among demonic beasts. His thoughts are abruptly interrupted as Eunjong waves her hands in front of him, urging him to focus and asks, "Are you sure you're okay?" As Seonwoo regains his composure, he suddenly remembers an important detail, the barrier defense plan linked to the glowing bracelets they wear. He turns to Eunjong and asks, "Hunter Eunjong, do you know how long the bracelets have been shining?" She replies that she hasn't been paying attention. Realizing the implications, Seonwoo explains that the shining bracelets indicate the barrier is back up, signaling that they need to return immediately for safety. Eunjong expresses concern for their fallen teammates, Zhang Chansu and Kim Seonwoo, noting their serious injuries. After checking on Zhang Chansu, Seonwoo feels a sense of relief upon discovering that the mantis's attack narrowly missed Zhang Shansu's heart, leaving him unconscious but alive. Determined to act quickly, Seonwoo hoists Zhang Chansu onto his shoulder and instructs Eunjong to assist Kim Seonwoo, emphasizing the urgency of getting them to the healers. Eunjong agrees, and they both understand the gravity of the situation. Seonwoo acknowledges the long journey ahead, filled with uncertainty but also gratitude for having survived the encounter. He reassures himself that they've made it this far and that reaching the barrier is now their primary goal. In the city, the barrier is restored, and a guard is busy counting the casualties from the recent battle. A second guard approaches and asks for the numbers. The first guard reports that there are 58 dead, 17 injured, and 11 missing out of 86 participants. The second guard remarks that the toll isn't as bad as it could have been. Their attention shifts as Seonwoo arrives, carrying the unconscious Jong Chansu, while Eun-jong supports the injured Kim Seong-ho. They've made it back to the city, barely surviving the ordeal. The following day, inside a medical room, Eun-jong's voice echoes as she scolds Jong Chansu, who is recovering but complaining about the food. She insists he eat to recover faster, threatening him with tough love and showing her frustration, making it clear she won't go easy on him, even as he is their team leader. Watching this interaction, Seonwoo and Kim Seong-ho silently thank their luck that they aren't in Jong Chansu's shoes. At that moment, a man in a black uniform knocks and enters the room. Kim Seong-ho, curious, inquire, "Who's that?" The man introduces himself as Bae Jin-seong, the associate director of the city management team. Jong Chansu, though still recovering, introduces himself in return, and they shake hands. Bae Jin-seong comments on Chansu's improved condition, giving credit to the healer's skills, which he proudly remarks are quite good. Jong Chansu asks why the city management team is there, and Bae Jin-seong responds that he can't discuss it in here. Jong Chansu clears the room, and as they walk down the corridor, Eun-jong wonders aloud what's happening. Kim Seong-ho speculates it's probably about a reward, perhaps even the qualification to live in the city, then jokes about how out of place he is in the wilderness. Meanwhile, Seonwoo grows suspicious, thinking it's odd for the city management's associate director to personally be involved with someone from the wilderness. Inside the room, Bae Jin-seong laughs, remarking on the improbable survival of the group, which Jong Chansu attributes to their skilled guide. The guide, notably a non-metahuman, accomplished something so impressive that Jong still finds it hard to believe. Bae acknowledges the success, but reveals a new dilemma. The group's unexpected survival has put them in a difficult position, which makes Jong visibly anxious. Later, as Jong explains why Bae Jin-seong came to him, tensions boil over. Kim Seong-ho, clearly frustrated, loses his temper and throws a chair against the wall. Seonwoo and Eun-jong, observing from the sidelines, appear sad, their expressions reflecting the weight of the situation. Jong Chansu tries to defuse Kim's anger, but Kim remains furious. He sarcastically questions why only 2 qualifications are being offered for survival, and more pointedly, why they are being given exclusively to that bastard Seonwoo and Eun-jong. Jong Chansu attempts to explain that the city management team made the decision regarding the qualifications, implying that the group has no say in the matter. However, Kim Seong-ho is enraged, accusing Chansu of lying and claiming that the management team knows nothing. He expresses his frustration that if Chansu wishes to give up his qualification, it's his choice, but Seong-ho believes he, as the second strongest person in the group, should have been given the opportunity. Seong-ho is particularly angry that a non-metahuman has been awarded the qualification instead of him, feeling slighted by the decision. Chansu, in an effort to control the situation, shouts back at Seong-ho, warning him to be careful with his words. As tensions flare, Seonwoo, trying to de-escalate the situation by saying that he's fine with the outcome. This only provokes Seong-ho further, who sarcastically remarks that Seonwoo is fine because he will become an urbanite. Chansu urges everyone to stop arguing, reminding Seong-ho that the decision has already been made and that there's no point in continuing the dispute. However, Seong-ho, visibly shaken and trembling with frustration, refuses to accept the outcome, believing it to be a scheme. He accuses Chansu of intentionally making this decision, suggesting that Chansu thinks Seonwoo and Eun-jong, who lack combat abilities, wouldn't survive in the dangerous Area 17. Chansu tries to calm him by revealing that, in exchange, both Seong-ho and Chansu will receive all the rewards, promising that there will be another opportunity for them. Kim Seong-ho, still furious, dismisses the value of the rewards compared to the importance of his life. He angrily states that surviving in the wilderness is a constant risk and storms out of the room. Afterward, Jong Chansu tries to reassure Seonwoo, acknowledging that Seonwoo saved them and affirming that he should accept the qualification without worry. Seonwoo agrees, expressing gratitude for the citizenship, which was the goal of his risky endeavor. He explains that since the decision is final, he has no intention of giving up what he risked his life for. However, Seonwoo is concerned about how Kim Seong-ho will handle the situation. Jong Chansu downplays the concern, believing that Seong-ho will calm down eventually, attributing his outburst to a hot temper. However, Seonwoo is not entirely convinced and remains uneasy, hoping that Chansu is right. Later, during the night, Seonwoo remains awake and on edge. As he observes his surroundings, he notices Kim Seonwoo quietly getting out of bed and approaching Jong Chansu, who is sound asleep. To Seonwoo's horror, Seonwoo unsheathes a dagger. Seonwoo, gripped with anxiety and disbelief, closes his eyes, hoping that what he's witnessing isn't real. The scene escalates into violent betrayal as Kim Seonwoo, driven by jealousy and anger, raises a dagger and stabs Jong Chansu, causing him to cough up blood. Shocked and in pain, Chansu grabs Seonwoo by the neck and questions how he could commit such an act of treachery. Seonwoo, filled with resentment, blames Chansu, pressing the dagger deeper and causing more blood to spill, as Chansu, overwhelmed by pain, loosens his grip. Meanwhile, Seonwoo, who had witnessed the tension, lies in his bed, drenched in nervous sweat, too anxious to intervene. As Kim Seonwoo finishes off Jong Chansu, he mutters his resentment about Seonwoo, who has no abilities, becoming an urbanite before him, declaring that he will never return to the wilderness. His desperation drives him to turn his attention to Seonwoo, believing that Seonwoo must have overheard everything. Seonwoo approaches Seonwoo's bed, pushing aside the cloth cover, ready to attack with the dagger. He blames Seonwoo for the situation and strikes down. However, when he uncovers the bed, Seonwoo realizes that Seonwoo is not there. Instead, he finds a stun grenade, an unfamiliar object to him. Confused, he barely has time to process before the grenade detonates, blinding him and rendering him unable to see. Seizing this critical moment, Seonwoo, who had been preparing for this, leaps onto Seonwoo's back and swiftly stabs him in the neck with a dagger. As Seonwoo heard a voice in his head encouraging him to kill, he realized it was the same voice from before, confirming it wasn't a hallucination. Distracted by the voice, Kim Seonwoo slammed him into the wall, and before Seonwoo could recover, Seonwoo grabbed him again, slamming him onto the bed with such force that the bed broke beneath him, causing Seonwoo to cough up blood. Seonwoo then pulled the dagger from his own neck, causing blood to pour from the wound, which he tried to stop with his hand. Seonwoo was shocked that Seonwoo was still alive after being stabbed in the neck. Seonwoo mocked Seonwoo, saying someone as unskilled as him could never kill a metahuman. However, Seonwoo soon began trembling and collapsed to the ground and died. Seeing this, Seonwoo started trembling himself. Then, a blue aura appeared from Seonwoo's right hand, leading him to believe he was awakening. Determined not to lose consciousness, Seonwoo knew he had to cover up the evidence. Still trembling, he picked up the dagger and threw the dagger out of the window. Just then, Seonwoo heard Jong Chansu's voice calling out to him. When he turned around, the scene abruptly shifted. Seonwoo now found himself in an interrogation room, seated in the center. Bae Jin-seong, the investigator, stood nearby, while city council members observing from behind protective glass. Bae Jin-seong began the interrogation by recounting the events. Early that morning, guards responded to a scream in the ward and discovered a murder scene. Upon arrival, they found only one witness and 3 injured individuals. The incident had occurred a few hours prior, during the night. Hunter Kim Seonwoo died at the scene from a ruptured carotid artery, and Hunter Jong Chansu later succumbed to blood loss from his severe injuries. The sole witness, Park Eun-jong, was cleared as a suspect after verifying his alibis and the evidence. Kim Seonwoo was found unconscious, suffering from blunt force injuries. Bae noted that everyone involved had been part of Team Marlin, hunters from the 17th District, and that Seonwoo, as the only surviving witness, was crucial to understanding what happened. Bae mentioned Seonwoo's 3 years working as a guide for Team Marlin and his 2 volunteer stints for city maintenance as someone labeled unskilled. After a slight correction, Bae referred to him as a normal civilian and confirmed with Seonwoo if everything stated was correct, to which Seonwoo agreed. Bae then asked directly what happened last night, to which Seonwoo responded, an assailant broke in. During the interrogation, someone behind the glass questioned Seonwoo's claim, expressing doubt about assailant. Seonwoo confirmed, explaining that someone had broken into the ward at night and attacked them. When asked if he remembered the assailant's appearance or clothing, Seonwoo replied that it was too dark to see. Bae Jin-seong expressed doubt, mentioning that the crime scene told a different story. However, the conversation was interrupted by a person behind the glass, identified as a senator, who advised Bae to dismiss the case as just an incident involving the wilderness people. The senator suggested recording it as an assailant's attack, as Seonwoo described, and increasing police patrols rather than making a big deal out of it. Though Bae Jin-seong agreed, he noted something odd about the incident. Despite the large amount of blood inside the ward, there were no tracks or bloody footprints outside. This inconsistency made Bae suspect that Seonwoo might be giving a false testimony to cover up his own crimes. Seonwoo addresses the suspicion against him, asking if he can speak since he's now considered a suspect. He points out that, as a normal civilian without abilities, it's highly unlikely he could have taken on two metahumans, particularly ones with physical reinforcement powers. He questions the logic behind such an accusation, noting that he was on the verge of qualifying for urbanite status after completing the mission, so why would he risk everything by attempting to kill two metahumans? Bae Jinseong agrees, stating that from a logical standpoint, it would be impossible for Seonwoo to have killed them. Seonwoo then emphasizes the absurdity of him jeopardizing his newly gained qualification for such a foolish act. Bae Jinseong concurs that Seonwoo's defense makes sense, explaining that Team Marlin, which had just barely earned urbanite qualifications, could have been attacked by another metahuman seeking citizenship. He also highlights that evidence at the scene points to a fierce battle, and if Seonwoo, a non-metahuman, were the attacker, he would have sustained more severe injuries than the blunt force trauma he suffered. Seonwoo internally reflects that he indeed took a heavy beating, but only survived because of his recent awakening. The senator present during the interrogation urges them to conclude the case based on the facts. However, Bae Jinseong pauses and adds that everything he has said hinges on the assumption that Seonwoo is still a non-metahuman. The senator, curious about Bae Jinseong's pause, asks, "Yes, but what about it?" In response, Bae Jinseong calls for a witness to enter, surprising Seonwoo. Confused and shocked, Seonwoo wonders who could be the witness, as only the members of Team Marlin should know about him. His shock deepens when the witness is revealed to be the girl he had encountered at a shop just days ago, to whom he had returned an entry card. Bae Jinseong asks her to introduce herself, and she reveals her identity. "I'm Mari, a researcher from the City Research Development Team." Bae Jinseong questions Mari about her role. She explains that she works in the City Research Development Team, assessing the qualities of metahumans and assigning them tasks based on their abilities. When asked how she determines their abilities, Mari reveals that she has the power to sense signs of metahuman traits. Bae Jinseong brings her in specifically because of this ability, aiming to assess whether Seonwoo, who claims to be a non-metahuman, might have recently awakened powers. Bae Jinseong suggests that while Seonwoo was a non-metahuman up until a certain point, there are cases where people awaken metahuman abilities later in life. If Seonwoo had gained such powers during the mission, he would become a prime suspect in the incident. Mari, now standing in front of Seonwoo, studies his nervous face. She recalls a recent encounter with him, where she was surprised, having sensed signs of a metahuman in him. Bae Jinseong then asks Mari to confirm if Seonwoo is now a metahuman. Mari asks Seonwoo to give her his hands, so she can check for metahuman qualities. As he complies, Seonwoo closes his eyes and reflects on the traumatic events that occurred after Jong Chansu called for him. He recalls rushing to Jong's bedside, where Jong, gravely injured, urged him to run away before Kim Seong-hoo could kill him. Seonwoo realizes that even in his critical state, Jong was more concerned about Seonwoo's safety than his own, even as he lay dying before Seonwoo's eyes. Suddenly, a black aura emanates from Jong Chansu's body and rushes into Seonwoo before he can fully comprehend what is happening. Overwhelmed, Seonwoo falls to his knees, recognizing the sensation as similar to what he experienced during his initial awakening. He wonders if he is awakening again, but the intensity feels even stronger. As the dark energy fills him, he screams in agony and collapses, losing consciousness. His introspection is abruptly interrupted when Mari releases his hands and informs Bae Jinseong that she has completed her assessment. Bae Jinseong, eager for the results, prompts her to share her findings. To Seonwoo's shock, Mari declares that he is not a metahuman, confirming that he is a normal person. Bae Jinseong expresses surprise at this conclusion, questioning Mari to ensure she is certain. However, internally, Seonwoo feels a sense of dread and suspicion. He thinks to himself that Mari must have realized he has awakened and wonders about her true intentions, questioning what she might be scheming. The senator concludes that the results of Mari's assessment are clear and suggests sending her back. Bae Jinseong agrees, stating they have completed the verification process. The senator then shifts the focus to the murder case, emphasizing that someone who was disqualified from becoming a citizen attempted to kill a qualified candidate. He orders an investigation into all the metahumans from the raiding squad who did not obtain citizenship, marking them as suspects and instructing Bae Jinseong to check their alibis. Bae Jinseong then raises the question of what to do with Kim Seonwoo. Seonwoo interrupts, stating that he will give up his citizenship and return to the wilderness. Bei Jinseong acknowledges that the city council wouldn't oppose his decision, but questions why he has chosen this path. Seonwoo explains that he believes team leader Jong Chansu and Hunter Eun-jong deserve the citizenship instead. Bei Jinseong responds that Seonwoo has worked hard to obtain his citizenship and warns him that if he rejects it now, he will have to endure the lengthy process to regain it in the future. He presses Seonwoo for the real reason behind his decision to relinquish his citizenship and go back to the wilderness. Seonwoo clarifies that, given the circumstances surrounding the citizenship, he doesn't want to be seen as a murder suspect for killing colleagues he has endured 3 years with. He expresses his fear of merely surviving to become a target for the true culprit still at large. The senator agrees with Seonwoo's reasoning, declaring it logical and without further suspicions, allowing Seonwoo to leave. After saying goodbye to Hunter Eun-jong, Seonwoo begins to walk away, but he is called back by Mari, who approaches him. She comments on his fast walking, expressing relief that they didn't discover he is a metahuman and that he could escape the city. Seonwoo realizes that Mari has been aware of his true nature all along. He questions why she didn't reveal this during the trial, if she had ulterior motives. Mari responds, stating that she does not believe he intentionally harmed his colleague, suggesting that he was caught in an unavoidable situation. When Seonwoo presses her on why she kept silent, Mari reveals her interest in his abilities. She explains that what she senses from him is unique and exciting compared to other metahumans, indicating that he gives off a different kind of energy. This revelation leaves Seonwoo puzzled as he contemplates her words, unsure of what she means. Mari explains to Seonwoo the general classification system for metahumans. She mentions that most metahumans fit into one of 6 primary categories: physical reinforcement, enhanced strength or durability; supernatural powers, abilities that manipulate forces beyond the physical realm; magical technology, control over tech imbued with magical properties; taming of evil, the power to subdue or command malicious entities; psycho-affiliation, mind-based powers; and magic, pure magical abilities. However, Mari points out that there are rare exceptions to this categorization. As an example, she mentions Senator Beatrice from Gwangmyeong, who stands out due to her unique signal that doesn't align with these standard categories. Seonwoo asks if Beatrice's power, which involves setting up protective barriers, would still be considered a form of supernatural ability. Mari confirms that, technically it is, but she emphasizes that Senator Beatrice's capability is extraordinary. She's the only one able to sustain a protective barrier spanning several kilometers for an entire year, a feat that highlights the exceptional nature of her power. Mari then shifts her focus to Seonwoo, asking if he experienced anything out of the ordinary during his awakening as a metahuman. This question triggers a memory in Seonwoo, a voice urging him to kill and seize power. Though he's hesitant, he admits to Mari in the present moment, "I think I heard a voice." Mari stated that's the characteristics of metahumans with psycho-affiliation, noting that they often hear commanding voices. She inquires about the specifics of the voice Seonwoo experienced during his awakening. Feeling a bit apprehensive, Seonwoo hesitates and admits that he can't remember what the voice said. Internally, he grapples with the idea of being less than truthful, despite Mari's friendly demeanor. Mari finds Seonwoo's inability to recall the voice peculiar, expressing her confusion and suggesting that he has a unique signal akin to that of Senator Beatrice, who is known for her exceptional abilities. Seonwoo, somewhat reassured but still skeptical, acknowledges that having a different signal could be advantageous. However, he questions the relevance of his own awakened ability, which he perceives as merely basic physical reinforcement. He struggles to reconcile this with the impressive capabilities that come with protecting an entire city. Mari clarifies that, given his recent awakening, he is not yet capable of reaching such a high level of power. She emphasizes that he is still in the early stages of developing his abilities. Seonwoo accepts this explanation. Mari spoke about the cataclysm when demonic beasts first emerged, noting that humanity was pushed to the brink of extinction but managed to survive thanks to the emergence of metahumans. She explained that places like Gwangmyeong have been rebuilt due to their efforts. Mari pondered the potential miracles that could occur if non-standard metahumans, like Senator Beatrice, came together. However, she expressed concern over how much longer Senator Beatrice could endure. For over a decade, she had prioritized maintaining the barrier, often at the expense of her own health. As Mari spoke, Seonwoo recalled what Jong Chansu had told him in the past about rumors surrounding Senator Beatrice's struggles, specifically that she could hardly sleep. He turned to look at the building where she resided, realizing it was plausible that such rumors had even reached the wilderness. Suddenly, he was taken aback when he noticed Senator Beatrice looking at him from her window. However, she quickly turned away and moved from view. Seonwoo felt confused and startled, convinced that he wasn't mistaken about making eye contact with her. He wondered if she had been watching him. His thought was interrupted by Mari, saying that Senator Beatrice was doing everything in her power to protect the people of the city with the limited strength she had left. She added that it was up to Seonwoo whether he believed her or not, but her ability to discern the potential of other metahumans confirmed her feelings. Mari insisted that he was a non-standard metahuman with great potential, similar to Senator Beatrice, and that he could end the fight against the demonic beasts and possibly save humanity. Seonwoo was taken aback by her words about saving humanity. He thought of the deaths of his two fellow party members, his own unprecedented awakening, and the chilling message in his mind urging him to kill the metahuman. His mind felt overwhelmed from everything that had transpired during his awakening, but the idea of saving humanity seemed distant. Just a decade ago, humanity was on the brink of extinction due to the emergence of demonic beasts. For those left in the wilderness, survival was the only dream and goal in life. To him, saving humanity was far less important than learning how to survive in the unforgiving wilderness. In that harsh environment, where only the strongest survived, he knew that ignorance of one's abilities could lead to death, whether at the hands of a demonic beast or another human. Therefore, as a newly awakened metahuman, his priority was to understand his own abilities. He resolved to test his powers in Mokdong, the ideal place for newly awakened metahumans. At that moment, he sensed something and turned toward a dark alley, where he spotted a figure with glowing red eyes watching him from the shadows. As the creature stepped into the light, he realized it was a demonic beast. Seonwoo thought to himself, he encountered one much sooner than expected. It was a 16th class demonic beast known as the Venomous Cat. The Venomous Cat charged at him, swinging its arms in an attempt to attack Kim Seonwoo, who quickly dodged by bending down. However, the creature's strike hit the bag he was wearing, tearing it open and sending the monster cores he had been carrying tumbling to the ground. He noticed the cores drop immediately and quickly created some distance between himself and the Venomous Cat. The creature lunged at him again, its mouth wide open for another attack. Reacting swiftly, Kim Seonwoo jumped to the side just as the Venomous Cat's strike landed on an abandoned car, obliterating it with a single blow. As he continued to put space between himself and the beast, he thought, I need to find a way to deal with those venomous teeth first. Spotting a manhole cover nearby, he dashed toward it, using his metahuman strength to lift it and position it in front of him as a makeshift shield. As the Venomous Cat lunged at him again, Seonwoo blocked the attack with the manhole cover. Channeling his metahuman strength, he swung the heavy plate, striking the Venomous Cat on the head and forcing it to stagger backward. He then threw the cover at the creature, landing a solid hit squarely on its face, which injured it and caused it to retreat further. Seizing the moment, Seonwoo charged at the Venomous Cat, retrieved the plate, and leaped high into the air. He landed directly on the cat's teeth, shattering them and sending the creature crashing to the ground. Taking advantage of the situation, he rushed over and began pummeling the Venomous Cat's face with the cover, causing its blood to splatter around. After a short while, he finally killed the Venomous Cat and tossed the manhole cover aside. He removed his hoodie and let out a sigh of relief before unsheathing his dagger. He then began to skin the Venomous Cat, cutting open its stomach to access the core of the demonic beast inside. Seonwoo carefully extracted the demonic beast's core, noting its high quality as a Class 16 core. He fashioned a makeshift bag using one of the cat's intestines, tying a knot at one end, and collected the scattered monster cores from the ground, placing them inside. Reflecting on his victory, he mused that killing the Venomous Cat might signify he had reached the status of at least a Class 16 metahuman. He found this achievement impressive, especially since it was his first test, and felt a sense of success as he continued on his way. As he walked, he encountered a banner that welcomed him to the oasis of the wilderness, a place promising abundant resources. However, he quickly noticed the unsettling quietness of the area. His attention was drawn to a bloodstain in a nearby alley. Crouching down to examine it, he observed that the blood had not yet clotted, indicating a recent struggle had taken place. However, there were no bodies in sight, leading him to speculate whether those involved had fallen prey to murderers. While exploring the area, Seonwoo suddenly heard a noise from behind a nearby broken door. Acting quickly, he drew his dagger and approached the door, pushing it aside to reveal a group of frightened children hiding inside. Lowering his weapon, he inquired, "Are they survivors living here?" Just then, He felt a presence behind him and spun around to see a figure clad from head to toe rushing at him with a dagger. Without hesitation, he swung his own dagger, causing the attacker to stumble back. The assailant quickly recovered, leaping onto a nearby wall before jumping down again to strike. Seonwoo wondered if the attacker was intent on subduing him. He retaliated with a powerful blow, sending the attacker crashing a short distance away. The individual quickly got up, drew a gun, and aimed it directly at Seonwoo. The armed figure ordered, "Put down your weapon and raise both hands above your head," slowly turned to face the wall. In response, Seonwoo complied, stating put down his gun. "Let's talk. I'm Kim Seonwoo," and he belonged to the node. The figure responded with a question. "From the node?" Seonwoo attempted to defuse the tense situation with the armed individual, assuring him that he meant no harm and was merely passing through. The person, however, remained unfazed, insisting that Seonwoo should relinquish all his belongings and leave immediately. In response to the threat, Seonwoo questioned whether the person truly intended to rob a metahuman from the node. The assailant expressed skepticism about Seonwoo's identity as a metahuman. To prove his capabilities, Seonwoo challenged him to test his strength and demonstrated his metahuman abilities by punching a nearby wall, which caused his fist to break through, startling both the attacker and the children hiding behind him. Confidently, Seonwoo noted that the armed figure was likely aware of the node's reputation, especially if he had experience in the wilderness. The person muttered something about a wilderness last order. Seonwoo reiterated that the node does not engage in plundering and instead conducts business based on reasonable requests. The armed individual, frustrated, demanded that Seonwoo turn to face the wall. Seonwoo countered with a warning that any harm done to node members would be avenged, asserting that the assailant couldn't afford to shoot him anyway. The attacker appeared confused and asked for clarification. Seonwoo then speculated that the weapon the person wielded was likely powered by core energy and noted that each shot would consume a valuable core, making it impractical to use it casually. He concluded by expressing his desire to find a safe place to stay for a few days before departing quietly, attempting to maintain a non-threatening stance despite the escalating tension. The armed figure agreed to trust Seonwoo, requesting his cores as collateral until he left the area. Seonwoo contemplated this briefly before throwing the bag of cores at him, expressing that he could easily reclaim it by force, but would comply to ease his concerns. In response, armed figure demonstrated his weapon's capabilities by inserting a core and firing a green laser that struck the wall near Seonwoo. He explained that, while each shot consumed valuable core energy, he could still use this level of firepower multiple times with just one core when fully charged. This indicated to Seonwoo that he was employing a technique to enhance the efficiency of core energy, which he recognized as a form of magical technology. After revealing this firepower, armed figure removed his helmet and mask, introducing himself as Urung, a member of Mokdong Shelter, then instructed Seonwoo to follow him, indicating a potential alliance or at least a temporary truce between them. After a long ascent, Seonwoo, Urung, and the children finally arrived at the 40th floor. Curious about their high altitude, Seonwoo asked Urung, "Why do they live so high up?" Urung explained, "They wouldn't choose this height if it were only about avoiding demonic beasts. However, being elevated provides a strategic advantage against humans." This made Seonwoo realize that Urung was alluding to the danger posed by murderers. Upon entering a room bustling with people, Urung approached a woman and provided her information about Seonwoo. The woman introduced herself as Reina, the leader of Mokdong Shelter, addressed him directly. Reina remarked, "So he is a metahuman from the node. Under normal circumstances, she would have treated a visitor more generously." Observing the organized environment, Seonwoo noted the military-like structure among the group and speculated whether this order stemmed from Reina's abilities. Reina elaborated on their current predicament. They are at war with those murderer bastards and are facing a shortage of supplies. In this wilderness, their foes are not limited to demonic beasts. They also contend with murderers and pillagers who have abandoned their humanity to prey on other humans. Seonwoo raised the issue of murderers disrupting the wilderness, suggesting, "These individuals are also a headache for the node. How about she consider a commission?" Reina, recognizing the severity of her situation, responded, "She is desperate, but the node wouldn't provide assistance without expecting something in return, right?" Seonwoo admitted, "True, but he is presenting her with an opportunity. Why not at least listen to his proposal?" Reina found his approach intriguing, stating he is quite an interesting friend. Wanting to gather more information before discussing specifics, Seonwoo inquired, can she tell him more about the situation? Where do they live? And how many of them are there? Reina explained they've taken refuge in a driver's license testing center to the east, and there are about 10 of them. Seonwoo stated 10. That's unusual. With such a small group, how have they managed to maintain order here? Reina responded they have managed to eliminate many, but they have lost a lot as well. They used to have over 100 people. Seonwoo stated over 100? It must have been challenging for them to find food with that many. She replied indeed, but there's something crucial to mention. They eat human flesh. This shocking revelation left Seonwoo stunned. Reina explained that there is a more pressing issue than cannibalism: the presence of metahumans who have combat abilities. When Seonwoo asked about their strength, Reina noted that while they may not be particularly skilled, they still pose a significant threat as metahumans. She described the leader of the murderers as the main source of their suffering, stating that she no longer desires much, only to eliminate the crazed individuals who have cornered them like chickens awaiting slaughter. After contemplating the situation, Seonwoo offered to take on the commission to wipe out the murderers, asserting that he would handle it personally. However, Reina expressed gratitude for his willingness, but mentioned that they had nothing to offer in return for his help. Seonwoo insisted that they did have something. He wanted to meet the magic technician at the shelter. This request surprised Urung, who was still keeping his gun trained on Seonwoo. Shortly after, Reina guided Kim Seonwoo into a room filled with weapons, where Urung called out to the magic technician. A young girl named Minnie responded, and we came to know that she is magic technician from Mokdong shelter. Reina inquired about her work, to which Minnie replied that it was not going well, as she lacked the cores necessary to test the artifacts. As Seonwoo observed her, he noted his surprise at how young and talented she was. Minnie inquired about Seonwoo's identity, to which Urung identified him as a metahuman from the node who would be assisting them. Reina noted that Seonwoo had something to discuss with Minnie. Seonwoo asked Minnie if she had created all the artifacts on display, to which she confirmed, albeit modestly stating they weren't particularly impressive. Observing her humility, given the challenging conditions she worked in, Seonwoo expressed interest in examining the items. Minnie allowed him to handle the artifacts, but cautioned that they weren't worth much. When Seonwoo picked up a gun, he remarked on its lightness. Minnie admitted the gun was flawed, unable to withstand recoil when fired, and Urung shared that he had nearly died trying to use it. Seonwoo then noticed the sword on the table and inquired about it. Minnie identified it as a tuned blade and explained that it was another failed creation. When asked about the issue, she explained her intention to enhance the sword's strength and durability by attaching a core. However, she found that to achieve the desired force, she needed more cores than expected. This requirement complicated the design because adding more sockets for the cores threw off the sword's balance, resulting in a cutting force much weaker than that of regular knives. As Seonwoo closely inspected the tuned blade, he declared that he likes it, asked her to sell it to him. Minnie was taken aback by his request and responded she wouldn't sell something she viewed as a failure. If he wants it, he could just take it. In reply, Seonwoo poured out his bag of cores onto the table, stating no, he was planning to take an artifact as payment for the commission. However, given the craftsmanship of this item, he feels guilty just taking it. Both Urung and Minnie were amazed by the abundance of cores laid before them. Seonwoo then complimented Minnie, saying he is impressed by her talent. Please use these for her research. Minnie hesitated, insisting she can't accept this much, and attempted to return the cores, but he firmly rejected her offer, saying this is nothing. As they exchanged the cores, their hands brushed against each other, causing Seonwoo to experience an unusual sensation, almost like something was flowing into his mind, and he thinks could it be related to magic technology? Noticing Seonwoo holding Minnie's hand, Urung interrupted, asking what they were both doing. Reina playfully called out to Seonwoo, suggesting that he was holding the hand of a younger girl for too long, implying it might be inappropriate. She pointed out that while both of them were young, the age difference was significant and quite apparent. Seonwoo quickly shook Minnie's hand and insisted that Reina's comment was inappropriate, emphasizing that the situation was not what she suggested. In an instant, his eyes shone with a golden light, and he was struck by a voice in his head commanding him to kill and seize power. The overwhelming pain caused him to clutch his head tightly, resulting in him dropping the tuned blade onto the floor. Minnie's anxiety heightened as she witnessed his sudden distress. Reina observed that Seonwoo appeared tired and overexerted, prompting her to suggest that he take a break to recuperate. Seonwoo acknowledged her observation and expressed gratitude for her advice, agreeing that resting would be a good idea. Reina then offered to help him relax further by suggesting she could sing him a lullaby if he was having difficulty sleeping. He quickly picked up tuned blade and declined Reina's offer with a polite no. Reina responded with a laugh, playfully teasing him for acting too mature for his age, expressing a hint of disappointment in his serious demeanor. She then shifted her attention to Arung, inquiring if he would like her to sing him a lullaby instead, suggesting that she was willing to provide comfort to both of them. Arung, however, curtly replied that he was fine. Later, after being escorted to a room, Seonwoo lay on the bed, thoughts swirling in his mind. Damn it, that voice is back, pushing him to kill. He thought the voices from Awakening were supposed to fade with time, yet it seems that is only growing stronger. What's happening? He closed his eyes, attempting to rid himself of the troubling thoughts. Suddenly, vivid memories surged forth, recalling the voice urging him to kill Kim Seonwoo and Jong Chansu to claim their power, along with its earlier command to kill Minnie and take her power. Startled by the terrifying memories, he opened his eyes wide, drenched in sweat. As sunlight filtered through a broken window, he rose from the bed, cursing his dire situation. After a brief period, Seonwoo and Arung used a telescope to survey the base of the murderers. Arung pointed out their proximity to the base, expressing concern about their safety in such close quarters. Seonwoo then asked about a metahuman associated with the murderers, to which Arung confirmed that he was their leader. Curious about the leader's abilities, Kim Seonwoo pressed for more information. Arung shared that he had narrowly escaped the murderer's leader, so he didn't know all the details but remembered that the leader was exceptionally fast. This revelation prompted Seonwoo to reflect on his motivations for undertaking the mission. It wasn't driven by compassion, but rather a desire to test his own abilities against a metahuman. Despite this, he recognized the need to remain cautious. Shifting gears, Arung opened a box he had brought with him, piquing Seonwoo's curiosity. When Seonwoo asked what it was, Arung revealed it was a sniper rifle that Minnie had completed just the day before. He explained that the rifle uses electromagnetic energy to accelerate special core bullets, enabling it to fire quietly and with immense power. However, Arung noted he couldn't test the weapon in real combat because he didn't have any cores available. He mentioned that Minnie was able to finish the sniper rifle thanks to the cores that Seonwoo had supplied. Seonwoo expressed hope that the newly acquired items would be useful in their mission. Arung affirmed his trust in Minnie's craftsmanship, prompting Seonwoo to unsheath his toon blade, sharing his desire for it to function effectively in combat. Arung voiced his concern about Seonwoo's intention to use the toon blade, mentioning Minnie's worries about it. In response, Seonwoo revealed a small light blue core, stating that it would eliminate any concerns about core consumption while using the blade. Arung was impressed by the core's size and quality, exclaiming that he had never seen one so small and pristine. Seonwoo elaborated on an artifact from Gwangyang City that could compress core power, allowing the energy of multiple cores to be contained within 1 or 2 cores. This innovation intrigued Arung, who remarked on the variety of advancements from Gwangyang City. Curious about Arung's background, Seonwoo asked if he had ever been to a city. Arung revealed that he had never left Mokdong, noting that he had heard it was once part of a larger city. Seonwoo clarified that Mokdong was part of Seoul, a vast metropolis that had once housed around 10 million people, though much of it was now destroyed by demonic beasts. Arung was astonished by this revelation, realizing that a city of that size would have been far larger than Gwangyang City. Seonwoo agreed, emphasizing the significant differences between the two locations. Arung expressed his dream of living in a city one day, which led him to ask Seonwoo if he shared a similar aspiration of becoming an urbanite. He then remembered what his fellow party member had said to him in past, that he will never return to the wilderness, which made his expression grow somber. To divert from the heavy topic, Seonwoo activated the core within the toon blade, producing a dazzling blue light that illuminated the weapon. He suggested they test its capabilities, demonstrating its power by tossing a nearby brick into the air and slicing through it effortlessly with the blade. Arung watched in awe and applauded, clearly impressed by the display of strength of the blade. With their preparations finalized, Seonwoo noted that they only needed to wait for nightfall, to which Arung agreed. As darkness descended, Arung gently walked up Seonwoo, informing him that it was time to move. Grateful for Arung's watchfulness, Seonwoo asked about the murderer's status. Arung replied that they were likely sleeping soundly and advised Seonwoo to remain quiet. Seonwoo then asked if Arung could handle the security troops at the tower once he reached the entrance. Arung confidently assured him that he could manage the responsibility. A short while later, at the murderer's base, Seonwoo stealthily approached a yawning guard, expertly positioning his dagger at the man's neck. He whispered firmly, "Don't make a sound." However, the guard attempted to reach for his weapon, prompting Seonwoo to swiftly drive his dagger into the watcher's neck, killing him instantly. The noise of the struggle drew the attention of a guard in the tower, who swung a spotlight in Seonwoo's direction, revealing the dead body of the Watcher. At that critical moment, Arung intervened by firing a sniper shot that struck the tower guard in the head, neutralizing the immediate threat. As the tower guard collapsed, the spotlight illuminated an open window where the leader of the murderers was sleeping, waking him abruptly. Confused, he asked, "What is happening?" Meanwhile, Seonwoo continued his mission, methodically taking out watchers in the corridor. As he examined one of the fallen bodies, he pondered how easily a metahuman could kill those without powers. Despite his prior experiences with killing, he felt an unsettling discomfort about becoming desensitized to such violence. Suddenly, he heard a noise behind him and turned to find the murderer boss approaching. Realizing too late that he had failed to sense the man's presence, Seonwoo prepared to defend himself. The boss charged, and when Seonwoo swung his dagger, the man evaded the attack with incredible speed. In a swift counter, the boss bent down and kicked Seonwoo's foot, causing him to fall to the ground. Kneeling on Seonwoo's chest, the murderer's boss interrogates him, demanding to know his identity and origins. Seonwoo activated his metahuman ability in his right arm to break free from the grip of the murderer boss, who quickly recognized the change and leaped back in surprise. The boss, intrigued by Seonwoo's unexpected display of power, questioned whether he was a metahuman. Rising to his feet, Seonwoo assumed a fighting stance, prompting the murderer boss to laugh, finding the situation entertaining. He suggested that they move to a larger area to fight, as the current space was too confined for a proper confrontation. Feeling nervous, Seonwoo hesitated for a moment, but the next instant, the murderer kicked him, sending him crashing through the glass window and landing forcefully onto a car below. Arung, who was positioned at a distance with his sniper rifle, watched anxiously as he fell. Shaking with apprehension, Seonwoo attempted to rise from the car just as the murderer boss jumped out of the window and landed directly on it. Seonwoo barely managed to dodge the boss's impact by rolling aside at the last moment. Amidst the chaos, some of the murderer boss's minions rushed towards Seonwoo, shouting in alarm. However, the boss ordered them to stay back, declaring he's his prey. Meanwhile, Seonwoo regained his footing and prepared for a fight, now surrounded by a metahuman aura. Arung took a shot at the murderer boss with her sniper rifle, but the bullet went wide. Instantly, the murderer boss shifted his focus to where the shot originated, pinpointing Arung's position. Arung fired shot after shot at the murderer's boss, but he effortlessly dodged each bullet, grinning with confidence. Frustrated, Arung recognized the murderer's boss' incredible speed and realized he couldn't land a shot on him. The murderer's boss then ordered his minions to eliminate the sniper in the western building. His subordinates immediately responded, rushing toward Arung's location and shouting their agreement. As the enemies approached, Arung, feeling the pressure, managed to take down one of them with a headshot, but grew increasingly anxious as the remaining minions stormed into the building, yelling threats to kill him. Meanwhile, the murderer's boss charged at Seonwoo. Seonwoo prepared himself, taking a fighting stance and swinging his blade as the boss closed in. However, the boss easily leaped over the attack, mocking Seonwoo for being too slow. The boss then landed on a nearby tire, launching it at Seonwoo with a powerful kick. Seonwoo quickly sliced the tire in half with his blade, but the attack was merely a distraction. The boss used the diversion to close in, kicking the weapon from Seonwoo's hands and sending it clattering to the ground. With a confident smirk, the murderer boss assumed his own fighting stance, taunting Seonwoo by pointing out his lack of mastery over his power. Seonwoo, muttering a curse, drew his dagger to face the murderer's boss. The boss, smirking, taunted him, asking if he had only recently awakened as a metahuman and offering to teach him how to fight properly if he joined his gang. Seonwoo retorted, sarcastically rejecting the idea of looting the wilderness and claiming the voices in his head were urging him to kill the boss immediately. Amused, the murderer's boss laughed and declared Seonwoo would instead be tonight's main course. The two combatants lunged at each other, their clash kicking up a cloud of dust. While they fought, the boss's minions charged up the stairs inside the building, hunting Arung and shouting about his location on the higher floors. Suddenly, one minion triggered a trap, and his scream echoed through the structure. Arung, hearing the chaos, laughed and mocked the intruders, hoping they would fall into every trap he had painstakingly set. Outside, the murderer's boss seemed to relish the battle, while Seonwoo was visibly tiring. The boss unleashed a rapid series of kicks, and although Seonwoo managed to dodge some, one powerful kick struck him, sending him flying backward. Struggling to maintain composure, Seonwoo realized he needed to change his mindset. Acknowledging the murderer's boss' superior experience in fighting metahumans, Seonwoo drew on his own history of battling demonic beasts. He decided to stop viewing the boss as a human opponent and instead treat him like a beast in human form, hoping the shift would help him calmly analyze and adapt to the boss's attack patterns. He will throw away his fixed perception of what a human can do and what attack patterns they have. Meanwhile, Arung aimed his sniper rifle at the ongoing battle between Seonwoo and the murderer boss, waiting for the perfect moment to take a shot. The boss's minions began pounding on the door, which Arung had secured tightly with ropes wrapped around the handles. Taunting them, he called out, "Bang on it all they want. It's not going to budge." More importantly, he can't get a clear shot at their boss, and he thinks that Seonwoo will stop hesitating and lure him out already. During this standoff, the murderer's boss unleashed another powerful kick aimed at Seonwoo, but Seonwoo skillfully dodged, causing the kick to strike a nearby car and leave a significant dent in its metal frame. Analyzing his opponent, Seonwoo noted, his strength lies in his speed and those devastating kicks. But are his legs the only things that are strong? Determined to find an opening, he decided to engage the boss in close combat. As Seonwoo closed in, he evaded the first kick, but the murderer's boss countered with a knee strike. Seonwoo attempted to block, but the knee attack broke through his defense, striking his head and causing him to cough up blood as he was sent crashing backward onto the ground. Seeing an opportunity to finish the fight, the murderer's boss charged forward, preparing to deliver a downward kick. However, he was suddenly hit by a sniper shot from Arung. Taken by surprise, he turned toward the source of the shot, and as more bullets flew his way, he quickly sought cover behind a nearby car, momentarily halting his aggressive advance. Arung was feeling flustered as she observed the murderer boss's skillful evasion tactics, comparing him to a rat that hides well. Meanwhile, the murderer boss, who was nursing a wound from a sniper shot, took cover behind a car and found amusement in the situation. He wondered if Arung was making such a fuss over him, simply skipping the initial part of their confrontation, calling her a cute little bastard in his thoughts. Suddenly, he sprang from his hiding spot and sprinted toward the building where Arung was shooting, easily dodging all incoming shots. The murderer's boss stating, "All right, even though he began with the mains, he'll go for the appetizer now." As he advanced toward him, Arung reacted with alarm, shouting, "Don't come here, you monster!" and fired his sniper in a desperate attempt to defend himself. However, the murderer's boss displayed remarkable agility, easily evading each shot he took. After several more attempts, Arung began to notice the recoil from her sniper rifle, and it's starting to smoke. He quickly realized that the core energy was running low. Before he could reload, the murderer's boss summoned all his strength and leaped onto the top of the building. Arung was taken aback by his incredible jumping ability. Upon landing, he launched a powerful kick at him, which he tried to block with his sniper rifle. However, the weapon shattered under the force of the attack. Reacting quickly, Arung jumped back, drew his crossbow, and aimed at the murderer boss. Noticing him movement, the murderer's boss taunted, "Did he come from Akdong?" Arung chose to remain silent and fired an arrow, but the boss narrowly avoided it by tilting his head. Feeling anxious, Arung hurried to reload his crossbow as the murderer's boss continued his slow advance toward him. Arung quickly reloaded his crossbow and aimed it at the murderer's boss, warning him not to approach any closer. However, he remained undeterred and continued to advance toward him. Then as he did not, Arung shot another arrow. He effortlessly dodged by tilting his head to the side and taunted, another missed shot. As Arung reloaded again, the murderer's boss closed the distance and stood right in front of him, smirking and greeting him with, "Hello, my appetizer." His fear intensified as the murderer's boss loomed over him, grinning wickedly. He provoked Arung further, saying, "What is he waiting for? Go on, shoot him." Trembling with anxiety, Arung fired the arrow, but to his shock, the murderer's boss caught it effortlessly. "Impossible," he gasped in disbelief. With a smirk, the murderer's boss replied, "A toy like this can't harm him." Anger surged within Arung, and he swung his crossbow at him in frustration, but he easily dodged and positioned himself behind Arung, pinning him to the ground. He commanded, "Stay still, my appetizer." He screamed in defiance, "Let him go, you lunatic." Ignoring his plea, the murderer's boss picked up a broken arrow from the ground and began stabbing him in the back with the arrowhead, causing Arung to cry out in pain. Arung is questioning the behavior of crazed murderer, while the murderer's boss takes pleasure in the man's suffering, enjoying his screams and likening them to fine music for a good meal. In a moment of desperation, Arung screams at his tormentor, pleading for the murderer boss to kill him and end his suffering. The murderer's boss cruelly taunts Urung, questioning his hope for survival and threatening him with further violence. He warns Urung that speaking could lead to self-injury and chillingly suggests that Urung's suffering will continue regardless of his condition, expressing a twisted curiosity about how much of Urung will be harmed before he stops singing. Urung defiantly shouts at his captor, demanding to be released and vowing to kill him, revealing the desperation of her predicament. The murderer boss, unfazed, chuckled and encouraged her to scream louder, reveling in his fear. His focus shifted upon hearing a scream from his minions coming from the stairs. Meanwhile, Seonwoo, determined to rescue Urung, expertly sliced through the ropes binding the door handles and kicked the door open. Urung's relief was palpable as he smiled and joyfully greeted his brother, expressing gratitude for his arrival. Their reunion was marked by concern as Seonwoo asked if he had been waiting long and whether he was unharmed. The murderer boss, irritated by the interruption, remarked on the disruption of his fun, revealing his sadistic tendencies. Urung, realizing the moment was right to act, sprang onto the murderer boss's back and plunged a broken arrowhead into his neck, eliciting a scream of agony from him. Urung bravely taunts him and offering him an arrowhead as a substitute for a feast, showcasing her courage and quick thinking in a perilous situation. Seizing the opportunity, Seonwoo acted with remarkable speed, lunging forward and severing one of the murderer boss's legs with his blade. The boss collapsed, shocked and in pain, gasping in disbelief at the attack. Seonwoo taunted him, remarking on the loss of his prized leg. Enraged, the murderer boss shouted curses, but it was clear that he was losing the upper hand. Seonwoo, filled with resolve, raises his blade and asserts that he is lunatic bastard. He delivered a final, decisive strike, splattering the murderer boss's blood as his lifeless body fell to the ground. At the moment, Seonwoo heard a voice in his head urging him to kill the metahuman and absorb his power. Frustrated by the persistent voice, he tried to dismiss it. Suddenly, his metahuman ability activated, allowing him to absorb the fallen metahuman's power, which caused Seonwoo to scream in agony. Later, Seonwoo regained consciousness and found himself seated in a car, disoriented and questioning his surroundings. Outside the vehicle, Urung's voice broke through his confusion as Urung expressing his concern, saying it a relief that he wake up, revealing that his sudden fainting had frightened him. Seonwoo, surprised by his strength, asked if he had carried him there alone. Urung replied sarcastically, implying that no one else present here other than himself. So who would have brought him here? Seonwoo couldn't help but think to himself that Urung had more energy than he expected from someone who appeared so frail. Inquiring about the car, he asked what Urung's plans were. Urung explained that it belonged to Mokdong and expressed his determination to find valuable gasoline to take back, expressing anger towards those who had stolen it. As he climbed into the driver's seat, Seonwoo skeptically questioned her driving abilities. Urung expressed confidence in his ability to drive, stating that he had experience with abandoned cars and hoping the current vehicle would start. When the engine roared to life, both he and Seonwoo felt a sense of relief, leading Urung to excitedly proclaim his luck. Eager to explore the car's features, he attempted to turn on the music, curious about what the previous owners had listened to. As a lively song began to play, its catchy lyrics filled the air, offering a stark contrast to their earlier tense situation. The lyrics described whimsical imagery, including whipped cream and a pink heart, which momentarily caught Urung off guard. She paused, taken aback by the upbeat nature of the song and questioning its appropriateness for their circumstances. Seonwoo explained that the song was from a popular idol group before the cataclysm and noted that their music didn't fit the current situation. Urung expressed mild surprise but admitted he liked the song and suggested they get moving. At that moment, they noticed a red flare signal in front of them. Seonwoo identified a flare signal and pointed out that it was in the direction of Urung's shelter. Urung confirmed that it was indeed their shelter's danger signal, noting the significance of the color as they continued driving towards it, reflecting their urgency to respond to the threat. Meanwhile, an anxious girl rushed over to Reina, conveying a sense of urgency in her voice. When Reina inquired about any news from Urung, the girl clarified that there was no update on Urung, but instead reported a concerning situation. Demonic beasts were gathering in large numbers, reminiscent of the chaotic aftermath of an earthquake. This alarming news prompted Reina to react immediately, rising to her feet and seeking more details. She asked the girl which direction the beasts were moving toward, and the girl responded that they were gathering to the southwest. As Reina approached, Minnie, who had been monitoring the approaching monster horde, pointed it out to her. In response, Reyna quickly grabbed a telescope to gain a clearer view of the situation. After observing the horde's behavior, she informed Minnie that it appeared the monsters were fleeing from something that frightened them. Minnie countered Reyna's initial assessment, suggesting that the source of their fear wasn't from the ground, but rather from above. Following Minnie's cue, Reyna shifted the telescope upward and spotted a formidable flying monster approaching them, brandishing a massive scythe reminiscent of a Grim Reaper's weapon. Upon spotting the creature, Reyna began to tremble with fear and confusion, questioning why Belkist, an infamous and powerful S-class demonic beast that had been absent for years, was suddenly reappearing and heading towards them. Memories flooded her mind of this terrifying entity, which resembled a demon and was capable of decimating an entire nation's army with a single flap of its massive wings. The mere mention of Belkis conjured nightmares for those who had survived the cataclysm, making it a figure they could never forget. As Belkist raised its enormous scythe, Reyna instinctively shouted for Minnie to find cover. In a swift motion, the creature swung its scythe, unleashing a dark slash that struck the building, leaving a massive gash through its center. Seonwoo urgently called for Urung to stop, expressing his concern about the danger signal they had seen. He pointed out that the color of the signal could indicate the type of threat they were facing. If it was an intermediate-class demonic beast, he felt confident that he could handle it using his awakened abilities. However, the appearance of a red signal flare raised alarms for him, suggesting a far more severe situation. He recognized that a red flare means the presence of a demonic creature above intermediate class, which was a much greater threat. In response, Urung confirmed his fears, explaining that the red signal indeed meant a disaster-class monster had emerged. Urung urged him to go to base, without realizing the gravity of the situation. Seonwoo expressed his anxiety upon realizing they were dealing with a disaster-class creature, prompting him to urgently ask Urung to stop the car. However, Urung resisted, insisting that he wanted to return to the Mokdong shelter. Seonwoo tried to reason with him, explaining that a disaster-class demonic beast was beyond the capability of humans to confront. He emphasized the importance of the signal flares, which indicated situations that were far too dangerous for them to engage with directly. He insisted that their priority should be to escape rather than confront the impending threat. Despite his pleas, Urung remained resolute, arguing that they had to go back, even if it was just to save one person. At that moment, a horde of monsters appeared on the right side of the car, fleeing from Belkis' terror. This prompted Seonwoo to ponder whether the monsters were sensing the presence of the disaster-class beast. Suddenly, one of the fleeing monsters crashed into the car, flipping it into the air before it slammed back down to the ground. After some time passed, Seonwoo regained consciousness and crawled out from the overturned vehicle, disoriented and concerned. He wondered how long he had been unconscious and where Urung was, fearing he might have gone back on his own. Seonwoo quickly utilized his metahuman abilities to right the overturned car back onto its tires. After starting the engine, he resolved to prioritize his survival, reflecting that Urung couldn't blame him for his decision to flee. He recognized that while they might have survived this encounter, the true danger lay in the possibility of the disaster-class monster wreaking havoc at Mokdong Base. He resolved to warn the 17th District about the impending threat. However, as he thought about the people at the Mokdong Base, particularly Minnie, his concern grew, prompting him to turn the car around and head toward the Mokdong Base instead. Meanwhile, Urung arrived at the Mokdong Base only to be confronted with a horrifying scene. The lifeless bodies of her fellow base members were scattered across the ground, sending a wave of despair through him. Suddenly, he heard a dropping noise behind him and noticed dust swirling in the air. Turning around, he saw Reyna gravely injured and lying on the ground. Rushing to Reyna's side, Urung cried out in alarm, asking what had happened. Trembling and near death, Reyna urged Urung to flee. Overcome with anguish at seeing her in such a state, Urung desperately pleaded for her to get up. At that moment, Belkis landed behind Urung, and he turned in confusion to find the monstrous figure staring at him, his eyes widening in shock. Just as Belkis prepared to charge at him, a beep interrupted the tense moment. Looking up, Belkis saw a portal opening in the sky. Without hesitation, the creature flew toward the portal and vanished. Still in shock from the appearance of Belkis, Urung exhaled in relief, thinking to himself that despite everything, he had survived the encounter. However, his relief quickly turned to sorrow as he turned his gaze to Reyna's lifeless body, grief etched on his face. He gently closed Reyna's eyes and began to cry, whispering apologies for not being able to avenge her death. Afterward, Arung searched the entire Mokdong base, his heart sinking as he realized that everyone was dead. A sense of panic rose within him when he thought of Minnie, who was nowhere to be found. Just then, he noticed a refrigerator with its contents scattered across the floor, which struck him as odd. Concerned about what might have happened, he rushed to the fridge, gently tapped it, and opened the door to discover Minnie hiding inside. Upon seeing Arung, Minnie immediately threw her arms around him in a tight embrace, relieved to see him safe. Arung reciprocated the affection, expressing his relief that Minnie was unharmed. A little later, Arung emerged from the underground parking garage with Minnie on his back, the dawn breaking and sunlight streaming down, signaling a new day. To his surprise, he spotted Seonwoo waiting for them outside. He smiled at Arung, expressing his happiness that Arung was safe. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers. Party popper if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button and help us reach this huge milestone. See you in the next video.